Greetings, happy warriors, and thank you for being part of the Rabbi Daniel Lapin Show. Thank you for subscribing, and thank you for helping to get the word around. And above all, thank you who've become part of the Happy Warrior community. And as you know, as always, there is a special private podcast, an audio podcast specifically for you, and that's available obviously on the We Happy Warrior membership site. So those of you who are members of the Happy Warrior community, we cherish you, and we try as much as possible to give you additional little special treats. And the special bonus podcast, of course, is just for you. So let us move right along. And as you know, ordinarily, I prefer discussing the 5 F's. On the podcast, I speak about ways in which you can benefit your life tomorrow. Those things you can do today that'll change your life tomorrow. And they revolve around the 5 F's that really matter. And so if you can do things that improve your finances, your family life, your friendships, your social life, your faith, your spiritual awareness, and your physical fitness, the relationship with your own body, you're in very, very good shape. And that's what I usually focus on because it's of lasting value, and it doesn't matter when you hear it. It's never too late to improve. It's never too late to put some of the tips and techniques into practice. And these 5 F's, by the way, they're very fundamental. More than 60 years ago, lived a one-time associate of Sigmund Freud. His name was Carl Jung. Now, I don't have much time for Sigmund Freud, as you've probably heard me speak before. But Carl Jung, different story altogether. Carl Jung was a religious Christian, and his insights to the human being, his awareness for spiritual reality, are very, very spot on. As a matter of fact, he had quite a lot to do with the founding of the Alcoholics Anonymous, the AA program. And everybody knows about one of the 12 rules, and one of them being the recognition of a higher force. All that is from Carl Jung. Terms like extrovert and introvert, Carl Jung came up with those. Having a complex about something, that was Carl Jung as well. And he and Freud had a big, big breakup, mainly over religion. Freud was obsessed with secularism. He was honestly at war with his Jewish roots, and he was at war with God. And as a result of that, he never really came up with anything that stood the test of time, anything that is really true and really valid. Freud just really didn't live up to all the original fuss. Carl Jung, on the other hand, being a person with religious belief, he has written extensively as that people who have religious belief are more likely to find meaning in life, and spiritual awareness is very much correlated with better mental health. And these are things I've spoken about many times. But Carl Jung, a very worthwhile guy, and I've invested a fair amount of time in understanding things from his point of view. By the way, what's interesting is that he came up with 5 pillars of happiness. He called them pillars of happiness. And what's so interesting is that not only did he come up with 5, and you'll know we've got the 5 F's, the basic principles of life, but they correspond. His 5 pillars of life that Carl Jung came up with about 90 years ago are exactly the same ones from ancient Jewish wisdom that we speak of today: family, finance, faith, fitness, and friendships, in no order at all. And so what I wanted to speak about today, in other words, is not the five F's, which I've already been speaking about, but I wanted to speak about why the rioters, pardon me, the protesters in Portland and in New York and in Los Angeles and elsewhere, why do they hate the United States and Israel? What, like, why? What do those two countries have in common? And and in any event, uh, what has Iran got to do with it as well, as we're going to be able to see very shortly? But rioters waving Mexican flags, what's that about? And looting stores and attacking police cars and attacking government buildings. If all they're doing is protesting immigration, then why does it constantly devolve into these mini wars? Riots is almost a mild word for it. What's going on there? So why is it apparently a hatred of both Israel and the United States? So I think what we ought to do is dive in to an attempt at understanding and making sense of why it is that the anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian protests merge into the anti-American protests and merge into the anti-Trump protests and merge into the pro-illegal immigration, anti-deportation protests. It's like all one big party. And regardless of what sort of invitation the malefactors receive, they all show up. Some show up because they hate America, some because they hate Israel, some because they hate civilization, which I'll come to. And above all, I think many of them come in order to loot and destroy, because there's something very fundamentally satisfying about that. It's one of the reasons that if you've ever had the great joy of being a parent, raising a boy, and you've also had an opportunity to raise a girl, and you can see the difference. Now, there are reasons why today we find incredibly violent and destructive women in the protests as well. But when you raise children, you will see that in the process of civilizing and acculturating a little boy, you're trying to get him potty trained so that he doesn't relieve himself any time the mood strikes him, but he holds until he is in an appropriate place and at an appropriate time. You try to acculturate him to managing to function quite well in between meals, so he doesn't need something in his mouth all the time. And you try to acculturate him to self-discipline. And one of the early things you also acculturate a little boy to is curbing his destructive instinct. That is very much a part of the untamed masculine being, the sheer joy of destruction. And so, yeah, little boys, they love to light fires, they love to break windows. Anything that is a dramatic act of destruction is really appealing to unacculturated young males, and as we're seeing, to what has become of young women as well. I may as well tell you the reason for that right now. And the reason, you know what, I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that in just a moment. The reason has to do with abortion. Strange, but true, as I will explain. But first of all, I wanted to tell you that we have got an upcoming wealth building masterclass. There is so much going on, and there are so many people who turn to us for guidance in the areas of finance. there are so many people that approach us for coaching in that area. We decided to do a wealth building masterclass on Zoom for people who are interested in understanding what the perils and opportunities are of things that are going on right now, particularly in the technological area. So I wanted you to know about it. On my website, there's a registration link, and maybe it'll just be best if you search using the search bar, search for Masterclass at rabbidaniellapin.com. So you go to the website, rabbidaniellapin.com, and you're looking for the Wealth Building Masterclass. And I want to invite you. It's on June the 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time in America, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. And we've got some people from Israel who are joining us as well. And for them, the time will be 3 a.m., I think. Is that right? Yeah, I think that'll be 3 a.m. So there it is. But June 24th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And it's called Wisdom in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. How to Build Wealth When the Rules Are Changing. That's Tuesday, June 24th. It's coming right up. In just 90 minutes, we're going to work together, guiding ourselves through timeless, Bible-based financial principles that not only still work, but work better than ever in our rapidly changing AI-driven world. So do join us. Go ahead and sign up, because we're keeping the seats limited because we want an interactive experience. We don't want too many people so that there can't be a conversation. We want to be able to hear your insights and any questions you may have as well. So you can go, as I said, you can also go to the We Happy Warriors website, We Happy Warriors, one big word, wehappywarriors.com. And there again, look for the Wealth Building Masterclass. And I look forward to seeing you guys there. I think every happy warrior should be very aware. And we're going to be sharing with you some of the things that I think will become evident to everybody within about 2 years. However, the reality is that early adapters, people who understand change early, profit or potentially profit very dramatically. Steam wasn't even around very long before there were people building steam engines, and they did very, very well, even though everybody else only began to pick up on it about 5 years later. The same was true with newspapers. Newspapers are less of an important thing, but that's because technology changes all the time. But when newspapers were big, really big, in the middle of the 20th century, early part of the 20th century, there were people who, I want to say men mostly, who latched on to the ability of large-scale printing. And whether it was in England or the United States or Australia, those who picked up quickly and adapted early to this incredible technology of high-speed printing for newspapers started newspapers and prospered mightily. So I decided that it is important, and it was partially me realizing that I myself had been downplaying the significance of artificial intelligence. And I had, in my own mind, tended to dismiss it largely. Well, I was wrong about that, and it does really need understanding, and it needs also a clarity in how you can deploy it in pursuit of your own financial fortune. So we'll do all that on the night of June 24th. Go to wehappywarriors.com, look for the Wealth Building Masterclass, and away we go. Look forward very much to seeing you there. So why is it that we're seeing women acting destructively and even violently today in the riots that are all over your screen? And the answer is that for several decades now, we've been pushing abortion. And I mean, can you imagine? They sell T-shirts that say "I've had an abortion," or having an abortion is an act of heroism, and so on and so forth. And so young women have been urgently directed into the abortion culture. Well, let me put it this way: there is no way that a woman can kill her own baby and not have it coarsen her nature and reduce her sensitivity, make her more capable of acts of violence that an ordinary woman who has not been damaged by the activity of conducting an abortion on her own baby couldn't possibly do. And so I think that the fundamental principle I've discussed in the past, and I'll repeat it just very briefly, and that is that how we behave impacts the people that we become. Actions change us. Thoughts do not change us. Actions change us. Thoughts can bring us to actions, and then actions can change us. But it is the action that changes us. And so the person who did the action of giving up smoking, which is a huge action, giving up and stopping any addiction is huge, that person becomes usually quite strongly opposed to tobacco because the action had an impact on the person. The bringing a baby into the world not only changes a mother, but it changes the father as well. And any man who's gone through it recently enough to remember what it felt like suddenly realized he was a different man. All of a sudden, extreme sports no longer appealed. And sitting and talking to a life insurance professional, well, that seemed to make a lot of sense. People are changed by experiences and activities. And so I don't think there is a more profoundly damaging activity to herself that a woman can do than killing her own baby. It has an impact. It does become, it makes that woman different from the way she was before. And so whereas in the up until the 50s and even through the 60s, you really didn't see women engaging in violence. Very, very seldom. In terms of attacking people in the street or in a restaurant, in terms of looting, in terms of engaging in acts of terrifying violence, but now you do, and you do a double take. You look and you say, "That's a woman smashing the chair over somebody's head. That's a woman." Didn't used to happen until the 50s and up into the early 60s, and it's happened more. It is happening now more and more and more, and that's just one way in which we have helped. We have helped to damage society, to damage a country, to damage a neighborhood, to damage the ability of people to coexist. And so that is something that is real, and it's something that happens all the time. So yes, we look and we see that sure enough, there are riots, destruction, looting, damage, setting stuff on fire. Mostly men, but also women are involved as well. And what is happening is that they are conflating their hatred of America, their hatred of Israel, what's going on here? So let me try and introduce the basic idea for your consideration. And as always, if you are a happy warrior, we love to hear from you on the Happy Warrior website, and we continue the conversation. There are those of you who may have different ideas, and there may be those of you who find this idea stimulating enough to write something about it. So the conversation continues on the WeHappyWarriors.com website. Here's, I think, the best place to start, and that is, let us summarize some of the things that make up what we think of as civilization. What are some of the things we make up when we think of civilization? Well, diminishing of violence. That the more civilized a society is, the less likely you are to see violence on the streets. And you've got to think back again to as late as the 1950s. It was very rare, extremely unusual, for any ordinary citizen to have had any first-hand experience of violence or seeing violence. Today, if you ride the New York subway, if you walk in the streets of San Francisco or Los Angeles or Kansas City, the likelihood is that you are going to see damage and violence. Very few people were victims of crime in those days. Today, is there anybody who's had zero experience of crime, never had a car stolen, never had anything broken into, nothing? Yeah, it's spread. And all of this is a failure of civilization dying and subsiding. So civilization means diminishing of violence, and included in that is crime, security of property and people, prosperity. That's a huge part of civilization. Prosperity, increasing prosperity, things becoming more available. So think in terms of, again, perhaps, take the last 50, 60, 70 years, and this would be true in your country, as wherever you live, as well as in the United States of America, and that is, what is considered to be a comfortable middle-class lifestyle has changed. It has become bigger and better. There's more stuff around. And so the square footage that people have in houses today, very different from houses that were built in 1940 or 1950 or 1920. You get much more. You pay for it, obviously, but many people are able to do that. It's not as if it's not as if a 3,000 or 4,000 foot house is only for the super wealthy. It isn't. It's for anybody who decides to work hard for a number of years and then wants to buy a nice house, and he can do it. And houses have more bathrooms. Well, it's not really as long as you might think it is, that the main form of bathroom in the United States of America and in the United Kingdom was an outhouse. One. Served everybody in the house. In the middle of the night, if you had to, it was a walk outside, and if it was in winter, well, you became tougher for it. Prosperity has increased through the efforts and miracle of what we call Western civilization. As a boating enthusiast, I notice it also in my own way. In the 30s and 40s, wealthy people had yachts, boats. Well, do you know what was considered a big boat then, a really big boat? 60 foot. A 60-foot boat was considered really big. And I enjoy going back, and sometimes from the library, sometimes online, I'm able to look at boat magazines from the 30s, 40s, 50s. Yeah, 60 foot was a big boat. You didn't read about much more than that. Vanderbilt had a boat bigger than that, but, that was about it. Today, ordinary people who are into boating and want that to be their hobby actually can afford a 60-foot boat. It's not the top of the line. It's doable. People can have it. Ordinary people. It may mean that you may do without 3 cars or some other luxuries, but whatever it is, it's not out of reach. So what is today's equivalent of a 60-foot boat? Now it's 100 feet plus. And so the same segment of society that could have reached for the top of the line for a 60-foot boat back in the middle of the 20th century, today those very same people are now buying 110-foot boats. It's things. This is what civilization does. The prosperity grows. Conquering nature with progress in science and medicine, that's another part of civilization. Science expands, scientific knowledge expands, and the application of it, medical advances. One can go to the dentist today with relatively little pain, if any at all. That's new. And there are all kinds of amazing and miraculous surgeries that can be done in medicine. But all these came out of Western civilization. The way that women are treated. I can't imagine that there are too many women who would like to return to the 1800s, 1700s. I don't think so. Civilization has made the life of most women better. Now, many women have made some very serious mistakes in their lives, abortion being one of them, thinking that it leaves no effect on you. Another one is the abandonment of being a wife and a mother. All right? Not helpful. I'm not even talking about society, but I'm talking about the woman herself as she reaches the late 30s and early 40s, and she begins to wonder, what's the rest of life like without children? But nonetheless, apart from these mistakes that women have made, the progress of civilization has made the life of most women much, much better than it used to be. Marriage, monogamy, all of these are functions of civilization. Here's an interesting way of putting it, if you would find it applicable, and that is, I speak about the 5 F's, and many of you are working as happy warriors to improve and increase your success in the 5 primary areas of life. Your family life, your financial life, your social life, your physical body, and your relationship to the spirituality of the world. And the reality is that civilization works on all those areas as well. I spoke about improvement in prosperity. That's finance. Civilization works on building finance, moving it forward. I spoke about family. Well, that's right. Civilization depends on marriage and monogamous marriage. Civilization depends on children being raised properly. It depends on boys being raised by fathers, not just by mothers. All of that is part of the F of family when it comes to building a civilization. Finance, that's right, sure. Finance, same thing. Civilization focuses on doing the things that make it possible for building financial wealth. We'll be talking about some of those things on the night of the 24th of June. And so finance, that's again, civilization depends on making it possible for people to further their own financial interests. Friendship, well, that's even built into the American Constitution. Free association, that people can hang out with whoever they wish to hang out with. There are people you hang out because of financial reasons. There's people you hang out with because of family reasons. But there are also other people you hang out with. We call them friends. We call them political associations. We call them sporting associations. Whatever they are, those associations, it's in the interests of a civilization to allow to exist and to maintain the conditions for their doing well. And then there, of course, is fitness. And, of course, civilization, with the advancing of medicine, makes the whole question of fitness so much more feasible. It was very questionable what you could do 200 years ago, 150 years ago, very questionable what you could do to improve your health. But today, it's a real thing. And finally, faith. Yes, civilization does depend on faith. And what aspect of faith? Well, it is primarily Bible-based Judeo-Christian faith. That is what has created Western civilization. Now, I have spoken separately about the civilizations that we found in China and in Japan as well, and I've discussed those and where they come from, but I'm not going to go into them for the moment now because we don't have a lot of time. We just want to try and clarify why it is that the rioters seem to be hostile to America and Israel, and what's really going on there. And so the explanation is that all those places that had access to the Bible, places to which Christianity spread, were places that developed civilization. And so, there was even, although Greece was largely pre-Christianity, they did have a lot of Jews there, mostly captives. If you've heard of Aesop's fables, Aesop is just the Greek transliteration of the Hebrew word Yosef, of which Joseph is the English transliteration, in that way that a Y sound in Hebrew becomes a J sound in English. So the father Jacob, in Hebrew, Yaakov. V and B obviously are the same letter. When I say obviously, if you've spent a little time with me on these topics, you'll be a bit more familiar with that. And it's not complex, by the way, to understand the basics of Hebrew so as you can understand why English behaves the way it does. You don't have to study Greek. You can just jump from Hebrew to English. You don't have to go Hebrew, Greek, English. But at any rate, Greek civilization, easy to understand. Roman civilization, easy to understand. Again, large numbers of Jews brought there after the Roman destruction of Jerusalem and the conquering of Israel, and also Christianity arrives in Rome. The rest of Europe follows suit quite quickly. The United Kingdom, England, as well as Scotland follow up, and civilization appears in the wake of the Bible. That's what happens. And so what we think of as Western civilization doesn't come to Africa other than in the pockets influenced by the missionaries of the 19th century, Christian missionaries who came to Africa and did introduce medicine, and they did introduce pockets of prosperity, very much so. So I know that for many people this will be a rather startling thought, that civilization is the consequence of the Bible. It's not just something that happens. And the evidence for that is obviously there are many places around the world where it just never happened. And you could say, well, they have their own civilizations. Not so. They have their own cultures, but civilization actually has a meaning. In other words, when people leave parts of the Middle East, parts of North Africa, parts of the rest of Africa, parts of Asia, and they seek to immigrate to France or Germany or Sweden or England or Italy or the United States, they're basically voting with their feet. They're basically saying, I'm in favor of civilization. I want to live in a civilized environment. That's what they're saying. You see, the way that the Bible embeds these fundamental principles about family, fortune, finances, friendships. The way that's all established is that, first of all, the 5 books of Moses contain more direction, more instruction, more regulation, and more ritual around money than any other topic in the 5 books of Moses. And so that's important because money is not intuitive. It's a very abstract representation of value. And so, for instance, what money actually is can't be established alone. In the example I like giving is you're doing renovations to your home, and your home's been in the family for generations, and you tear open a wall and you discover that there's a tin box, a little metal box with $50, $100 bills in it, $5,000. And you realize that from the little letter associated with it, you realize your grandfather, put that away for you, before World War II or during World War II, shall we say. And he felt that he was leaving you this gift that you would uncover in the house, and that it would be enough money to, pay off the mortgage, buy a brand new top-of-the-line motor car, or for that matter, a yacht. I mean, $5,000 back, say, 75 years ago, a lot of money. So the currency is still there. You're looking at them and you're saying, oh, look, $100 bills, 50 of them. I got a couple in my pocket. I know what $100 bills are. That's great. But you're not all that. $5,000 is a nice little windfall, but it's not the value Grandpa thought he was giving you, because the value of the money has changed. And that's not normal. That's a result of a culture deteriorating. It's not a good thing. Don't listen to economists who tell you, oh, a certain amount of inflation is good. Actually, no. Zero inflation is the goal. And just think about it yourself. You really don't need a credentialed economist to tell you this. Obviously, inflation is not good. And so, you know what it does to your savings, and you know what it does to your costs. It's not a good thing. Marriage, monogamous marriage, the regulation of the relations between the sexes, foundational to the Bible, obviously, right? Health, several references in the 5 books of Moses about the importance to use doctors, that there should be doctors. The idea of scientific advance, studying the world. Of course, that's in there too, which is why distinguished scientists, the most significant scientists from the 17th century to the 20th, whether it was Newton or Boyle or Leibniz or the people who came up with, just so much. If I don't have to take the time on this, you only have to Google Christian scientists of earlier years, and you'll see the list. 20 or 30 very significant names are Christian. Why? Because the Bible encouraged investigation of the natural world. It was very real. So, countries that were committed to the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu books of wisdom, did not produce this kind of civilization. Cultures that were dedicated to the Quran did not produce this kind of civilization. And you don't need better evidence today than the fact that there are far more people from the MENA countries, Middle East, North Africa countries, people of Muslim background who are trying to live in a Christian environment than the number of Christians who are trying to live in a Muslim environment. It's perfectly clear. The appeal of civilization is universal for all people. It is closer to God's blueprint for human existence. And so that's what happens. And so Israel and the United States are the countries most associated with Bible-based Judeo-Christian thinking. There are more Bibles per household in America than in any other country other than Israel. And Israel, of course, is the place of the Bible. So if you are out to destroy civilization, if you are an unacculturated male, your entire attachment to who you are comes from entertainment and maybe a university, then you are going to be hostile to civilization. That's what happens, man or woman. And so since civilization, Bible-based civilization, is chiefly characterized by the two places in which financial prosperity is more generated than any other places in the world, the United States of America and Israel, again, on a prorated basis, per capita basis, obviously, it's not a surprise that if you hate civilization, well, then you're going to hate America and you're going to hate Israel. And loving civilization is something that has to be acculturated. You have to be taught by your parents to love civilization. Because, and here's the whole problem, the problem is that civilization makes itself vulnerable in several ways. One of the ways that civilization makes itself vulnerable is that it provides the welfare of people who are actually undermining it. So in reality, the ability to not work and be available for mischief should be very restricted. It should be tiny numbers of people, because the reality is that by far and away, the overwhelming number of people on welfare in the United States, or on the dole in England, or on the welfare programs in Sweden, the overwhelming majority of those people could do just fine supporting themselves if they had to. Oh yeah, more painful to work than it is to get money handed to you, of course. But the problem is that civilized societies become soft-hearted in a way, and they are quick to give out the hard-earned largesse generated by hard-working citizens. And there are several reasons for that. One of the main reasons is that it's one of the ways that politicians buy votes, is by giving out stuff. And that means that in Western countries, there are huge numbers of people growing all the time who manage to live comfortably on payments extracted from their fellow citizens in one form or another. Either they get payments because they claim they can't work anymore, they whatever it is, that you don't need me to tell you. You know all the avenues that people have of extracting money. It turns out that USAID, the dreadful organization that President Trump is closing down, turns out that was supporting hundreds of thousands of people up to no good. There are so many ways, unfortunately, to suck at the teat of government. And that's exactly what is the inevitable tendency of civilization to create. And so you have this growing number of people who do not have to work. And the great thing about work is you're invested in the future yourself. You're invested in a stable society. You're invested in a crime-free society. You're invested in a society where mothers and fathers raise their children together. But if you're just being given money, well, it doesn't work that way then, does it? You're being given money, all of a sudden you have no investment. You've got the flow of money. Now, if the flow of money ever stopped, you'd learn a lesson very, very quickly. But they don't see that happening. They see stability is the order of the day. And that frees people up to be destructive, to riot, to protest, to loot. Sure, why not? They're all fine. And on top of that, the criminal control procedures have died in America, in England, elsewhere. The penalties for violating crime are very, very low, with very little chance of being caught. In the United States of America, murder is not reliably punished anymore. So all of these things make it easier for those who are hostile to civilization, therefore hostile to both Israel and America, and eager to dismantle it in the hope of being able to get even more free stuff if society can be restructured along socialistic lines. So that, my dear happy warriors, is a brief summary. It's a book waiting in me to be written with considerably more detail, obviously. But for now, what I'm hoping is that it gives you something to think about, and that it provides you with something of a sense of why it is that the rioters, or so-called protesters, are anti-Israel, they're anti-America, why they loot. It actually all makes a lot of sense. So I think that with one final reminder that you may want to join us, okay, for the webinar that we're going to be doing on June 24th. It's called the Wealth Building Masterclass. And if you go to wehappywarriors.com and look up Wealth Building Masterclass, you'll find it. You can get more information, and you can go ahead and register. But for those of you who are going to be there, looking forward to seeing you on June 24th as we tackle the wisdom that is needed in the age of artificial intelligence, how to build wealth when the rules are changing. So until next week, thank you for being part of this podcast. I'm your rabbi, wishing you a week of growth with your family and your finances, with your friendships, your faith, and your fitness. Thank you for being with us. God bless.